Well, I think the herdsmen have taken the government by surprise because these killings are happening in different areas at the same time.
But they've been happening a long time ago. This is not the first time.
Absolutely. The government played down on the activities of herdsmen, at the initial stage, but now it has assumed a monstrous dimension.
Good.
And I think this is the time for the security agencies to begin to harmonize their thoughts and their operations and to deal with this threat decisively. The same seriousness with which the government treated the Boko Haram saga should also be brought to bear in the case of the cattle herdsmen threats to communities in the Middle Belt.
Very good, Davidson. Now, let's take a look at the security forces themselves. They have denied that they've been overwhelmed. But like you said, they were probably taken by surprise on the scale of such attacks. Now, what is the problem? It's escalating. It's even becoming routine now in a way. So what is the problem regarding, securing these regions from Benue and its environs?
Yeah, actually, it's an issue that calls for serious concern. And the executive arm of government must take it as a serious responsibility, because one of the responsibilities of the President Commander-in-Chief is to ensure that you provide protection for the lives and property of the citizens and general welfare of the citizens.
Yeah.
Now, with the wanton killings that are happening left, right, and center, Zamfara State, Benue State, Taraba State, Kogi State, I think the security agencies need to go back to the drawing board and see how they can begin to work out a tactical operations plan to see that they nip all of this in the bud. Because if nothing is done at this stage, it can only increase. The spate of killings will only increase. So, but what is worrisome, even more worrisome, is that these herdsmen are seen to bear automatic rifles and use it against, defenseless civilians in local communities. I think part of what the security agencies need to do is to even go to the roots of it. How do these herdsmen come by this? Who are their sponsors? How do they come by these arms and ammunition? Are they locals? Are they foreigners? If they are foreigners, we begin to look at our borders. We begin to look at how to, secure our borders more than what we are doing now. That herdsmen are coming from other parts of West Africa, crossing our borders wantonly, should not be allowed any longer, because look at what it's causing the people of Nigeria. So that's one on the immigration front. Then on the internal domestic security front, the security agencies need to attack it headlong, just like they did with the Boko Haram issue.
In view of what you've just said, there's been very little talk about the arms reduction. You find youngsters carrying AK-47s like as if it's like part of their dressings and everything, and it's very worrisome. Now, every now and then we're being inundated with news about Nigerian customs seizing arms at the ports every now and then, but we're not seeing, a commensurate level at which these arms are actually being taken from the perpetrators of this act. So, what is the issue? Are we addressing the arms proliferation issue? Guns are freely being sold. You have little havens whereby they're being produced locally, and they're causing so much mayhem. And to correct the herdsmen thing, I think it has assumed a wider dimension. We could just call them militias, as it were. So what do you make of it?
Yeah, the issue of proliferation of weapons, light and small-scale arms in the Nigerian society has assumed a monstrous dimension.
Yes.
You see, there are a lot of suspicion that most of these arms were brought in by persons who wanted to use them for political brigandage.
All right.
And as we approach the election year, we will see more of these, arms coming into the country.
All right.
And that is why I think government needs to support, the measures that are being put in place by the customs and excise, both at the land borders and at our ports, to see that they provide them with requisite equipment that can help to, check all of these influx of arms and ammunition into our country.
All right.
Otherwise, we'll be getting into a situation where every man will now be for themselves. Communities now start procuring arms, to protect themselves, and this is not what we want. The country security forces should be able to offer us that protection that we need as a people.
Very good, Davidson. Now, let's talk about your political ambition. You're aspiring for the presidency in 2019. Now, would you say Nigerians are actually being empowered politically to choose their leaders, or they're being imposed on them?
That is the issue. You see, over the years, you will discover that what we've had in terms of party formation is elitist forms of party. Parties where you find godfatherism having the best of the day. Now, we are trying to look at a situation where, come 2019, Nigerians should have the freedom to choose who they want in whatever office they want them elected into without having to have candidates imposed on them. And that is why Grassroots Development Party of Nigeria is one unique party, a party that does not have any godfathers behind them, a party that is supposed to be owned by the people, a party that the people elect, their leaders. So Grassroots Development Party is coming with that paradigm shift in the way politics is done in Nigeria. It's no longer politics of money, but politics where true democracy is practiced. A government of the people, by the people, for the people. The people own the party, and no imposition of candidates from any quarter whatsoever.
Now, in view of the political structure of, in terms of the country, you find a proliferation of political parties. We're having almost like 80
about
now,
80, yes,
thereabout.
yes.
And then you wonder how INEC can actually cope with that. And worrisome, coincidence is the fact that these parties spring up towards an election. I have never heard of so many of them, and until towards the election you start finding names of. What do you think the problem is in that regard? Is it about enlightenment, or the parties themselves are not engaging the public as they should towards their ambitions?
Yeah, I think one of the issues is because of lack of proper funding. Most of these parties are not properly funded, and so they lack the capacity to be able to reach out to the public by way of...
But should the government fund them, or they're coming into politics, they're bringing their own brands of ideas in moving things forward? Should the government be the ones funding these political parties, or there should be another arrangement in which they gather funds to,
at a certain point, government can decide to fund.
Okay.
At a certain point, governments can decide to fund. But at the onset, the parties themselves can look for ways of garnering funds, to project the image of the party, the manifestos of the party. That's what we are doing at the level of the Grassroots Development Party now. Now, when it comes to our programs, we are selling our programs to the general public to know that we, as a party, we have something to offer to them, and a great deal of difference from what has been offered in the past. And that's why by 2019, we are assuring the Nigerian public that we will present a very good competition, if not beat the competition.
Talking about competitions and manifestos, which is usually the order of the day when it comes to elections. Now, should you become president, what would you do to change our current socioeconomic positions?
Well,
and challenges, as it were?
Yeah, you see, for us as a party, and for me as a presidential aspirant, I look at Nigeria from the point of view of the need for complete restructuring of the country. Because if the truth be told, Nigeria needs restructuring at all levels. Look at our institutions.
Okay.
They need to be strengthened. Institutions need to stand strong, and personalities you don't require for personalities to be the ones that are stronger than the institutions. Rather, the institutions that produce the personalities should be strong. So we are going to strengthen the institutions. Then we are going to look at all the areas where we have been bleeding. We have been bleeding in the area of education. We're bleeding in the area of healthcare delivery. We've been bleeding in the area of infrastructure. All of these areas we're going to look at. But above all, we're going to look at human capacity development, our youths especially.
Okay.
Our youth, because the youths are the future. And the way the elite today is playing fast and loose with the youths, with their psyche, it's terrible. Now there's massive unemployment amongst the youths. There's lack of capacity development. And so we want to see how we can, build up the youths so that we can be able to hand them over a virile and prosperous Nigeria. So we are going to be paying attention to the youth and to the women folk. Now, in our party, we have 40% affirmative action for women and 35% affirmative action for youth. Okay. So it's all about creating a new Nigeria, developing a new culture, going against the culture that is existing at the moment, building a new Nigeria on all fronts.